All right, well, welcome guys. Thank you so much for sharing your Saturday morning to learn about streams in Salem and the things that the city and our partners are doing to help keep them clean and healthy, and all the different incentives and programs we have that can help our streamside landowners be good stewards of our creeks in the city of Salem. My name is Luke Westfall. I'm the Urban Streamside Program Coordinator for the city of Salem, and I'll be your MC primary host today. We'll transition to some other speakers as we go. Some of our stream crew interns from the summer are here today, and some of our local partners that also provide resources for streamside residents in the city of Salem. So here's a little overview of what we're going to try to cover in an hour and a half. This will also be recorded on CCTV, so folks that are here today that want to review information that was shared, or if you want to send this to a friend or neighbor that wasn't able to attend, it'll be posted on our website. So we'll talk a little bit about the benefits of our streamside vegetation and riparian buffers. We'll go over a variety of the resources that the city of Salem offers for our streamside residents, as well as share some results from our Stream Crew internship program. And then we'll transition into partner streamside resources, and we have multiple partners here today who have outreach booths in the back. Some of you I saw were engaging this morning, so I'm glad that that's already happening. We've got soil water conservation districts from Marion and Polk counties. We have the Glen Gibson Watershed Council, and we'll share a little bit about Claggett Creek Watershed Council if they're not here today. Then we'll leave time for questions and outreach booths. And for those that would like to join, we'll be heading over to Bush Park later from noon to 1. Rain or shine, we're just going to walk along Pringle Creek, look at some good and bad plants, some healthy and maybe healthy stream banks, and some that might need some tender love and care, and talk about some of the common things that we do for weed control and native planting. So that'll be from noon to 1. Oh, a little bit about myself. So my name is Luke Westfall, and I grew up just outside of Southwest McMinnville. I graduated from Mac High in 2005, went to Willamette University and graduated in 2010 with an Earth and Environmental Studies bachelor's. For the last 10 years, 2012 to 2022, I worked as a nonprofit executive director for the local watershed council for the Yamhill and Chehalem valleys in Yamhill County and parts of northern Polk County and Tillamook. While I was in college, I actually was an intern on the City of Salem Summer Stream Crew for multiple seasons, and just in 2022, I was hired as the Urban Streamside Program Coordinator. One of the functions of that coordinator position is to coordinate the Summer Stream Crew. So it's a really fun full circle for me of education and work experience. And I couldn't be happier to be back helping our Salem community and engaging in our local creeks. So Salem is fairly unique in my eyes in terms of the amount of stream mileage that we have. We have a number of major creeks that run through town and drain into the Willamette River. More than 90 stream miles are identified. And then there's also lots of roadside ditches and other sort of unconnected drainage areas that run through our stormwater system. So 90 miles is a lot to care for. Along these waterways, the native vegetation provides a lot of different benefits. Improving stream water quality is one of the major things that our vegetation does. The actual canopy of the leaves provides shade for the creeks, and that shade reduces the amount of sunlight that can penetrate into that water and heat it up. We have a lot of aquatic organisms, fish, macroinvertebrates, insects that need cool, clean water. And the canopy of our native vegetation is one of the main ways that we get that cooling effect. The actual physical structure of the roots in the ground, the canes and trunks and branches above the ground also serve to improve water quality by serving as a literal physical barrier. So as pollutants may be washed off the surface, the physical components of that vegetation can slow it down and stop it before it can enter the waterway. Those roots can also help stabilize our stream banks and reduce erosion of those stream banks. And because the root system of these native plants is permeating through the soil, it also increases the amount of water that can be absorbed during rain events, so it can help reduce, to a certain extent, some of the flood waters that we have by increasing the porosity of that soil. So rather than a hard surface that just sends that water shooting somewhere, we actually have some absorption that's happening into the ground because of the roots. And of course, vegetation is one of the most key components of the life cycle and ecosystem of our fish and wildlife and pollinators, both streamside and further up the bank. So one of my favorite photos on this slide is the cutthroat here on the bottom right. That was actually found in Clark Creek, one of our creeks that's entirely within the city limits. And that was found during a construction project that we were working on. So that was a fish salvage during that construction. So we've got healthy fish populations in some of these creeks. So we'll be sharing a number of resources today available to streamside landowners. One of them is available to anyone in the city, and that is our 24/7, 365 Public Works Dispatch. This is something that I would hope all of our community members are aware of. We even have pens outside at our City of Salem booth that have this number written on them, so take one of those home. This is your direct connection to the City of Salem Public Works. You get a live person on the other end of that phone. You can also email us at service@cityofsalem.net. Now, you can use this number to report any issue. It could be road issue, it could be something in the parks. For folks today who are streamside landowners, some of the common things that you might use this number for are listed here. So if you're seeing something in the water that's unusual, you can report odors, colors, things floating down like bubbles or oil. You can report trash as well. Stream blockages, so that might be debris next to a culvert or debris behind your home that are just accumulating, maybe you're concerned about. In the wintertime, those are typically dealt with by our permanent operations and maintenance staff, and then in the summer, those might get assigned to me and our stream crew, since we have them late June, July through September, October. You can, of course, report illegal dumping if you're seeing something of that nature. We have ordinances that protect our streamside trees and vegetation, so there's limits to how much pruning you can do. There's permits required for removal of vegetation and trees, so if you see something, this would be a way to report that. But if there's any other concerns you have, this is your direct connection to the City Public Works. This is the majority of the streamside programs that are available to not only our streamside landowners, but folks in the community who'd like to get involved and engaged in streamside activities. So we'll be covering most of these today in the next few slides. If you'd like to learn more, I'd love for you to check out our website, www.cleanstreamsalem.org. There's also a link on there where you can sign up for our newsletter. Our coworker Stacy puts out a wonderful monthly newsletter with information both local and abroad about natural resources and stormwater and healthy streams. A couple of the programs we won't talk about today, but if anyone is with a school district or does education, you can find information on that website about requesting educational presentations for schools, neighborhood associations, and things of that nature. So we'll dive into some of these programs. One of them is that every year, sometime in the spring or early summer, we actually send a mailer out to every streamside tax lot within 50 feet of a creek. So you might have seen this come out promoting this event just in the last few weeks. This is our annual opportunity to try to engage our streamside landowners. We shared information about how to manage and improve your creekside. We try to answer some commonly asked questions that came up in the last year or two. We give information again about how to contact dispatch if you have any issues. And we also include information about flood hazards and how to contact folks at the City of Salem if you'd like to learn more about flooding in your property. So another annual program we offer, this is an opportunity to beautify your backyard creek with flowering trees and shrubs that provide habitat for pollinators, as well as provide canopy for cooling down the creeks and helping reduce erosion. So we typically offer an annual free tree program with species that are more often shorter than a tall tree. A lot of the things that we've been offering recently are more of like a short to tall shrub or a shorter tree. So some of the examples here are Douglas spirea, Pacific ninebark, snowberry, and red osier dogwood. So if you haven't participated in this before, it's a wonderful opportunity. You can participate every year. We send a mailer out to all streamside residents, typically between January and February. And we just finished our order pickups in late March. So we're just ending that for this season. But if you'd like to get ahead of the game for next year, I'm always available for site visits. I can come out, look at your property with you, learn about your vision and your history with the property, help you identify different types of plants you might be seeing throughout the year, and provide you some resources for how you might plan out plantings for your streamside. And our partners will be talking a little bit later. We only offer 4 plants per property per year, so there's lots of opportunities with local native plant sales through our Soil Water District partners, and they'll be sharing a little bit about those species and affordability of their plants that they sell. Kind of scaling up from that, if you're really serious about getting your streamside improved, we have been offering in the past a watershed protection and preservation grant. We're currently updating the program, so we're not able to take new applications at the moment, but if that's something you're interested in, please grab my contact information and reach out, and we can get ahead of the game and keep you posted on when that goes live again. It covers a wide variety of projects. For streamside landowners, the most typical thing might be help controlling your invasive weeds and replanting with native vegetation, or even with erosion, you might try some bioengineering projects where we incorporate live vegetation and other materials to try to stabilize a bank or rebuild portions of a bank. Typically, we have about $50,000 budgeted a year for this program, and multiple projects get funded out of that fund every year. So if you want to stay updated on your own, you can keep posted our cleanstreamssalem.org website. You can sign up for our newsletter. But if you'd like a more direct, immediate update when that goes live again, and if you'd like technical assistance for that, you can grab my business card at the end or come grab me and talk to me for a little bit. We also, this isn't just for streamside landowners, but one of the opportunities we have if a community member or a streamside landowner would like to get involved in a planting project around the community, we have a partnership with the Friends of Trees nonprofit. They help us coordinate multiple events a year for both streamside plantings and also some park and neighborhood plantings. So if you're a streamside landowner, this is a wonderful opportunity to learn how to identify some native plants, learn how to plant natives, and how to control some of the common weeds that we're dealing with. They also have opportunities if you want to become a team leader. You can sign up for that. You get additional training. You can basically serve as a small group leader during an event, and they will ask you to participate in multiple events a year to help them lead small groups. So in addition to trying to increase the number of native species that we have growing along our stream sides, we also face the challenge of trying to reduce and control some really particular invasive weeds. One of them is a knotweed, and there's multiple varieties, multiple subspecies of knotweed that are present. These knotweeds can very quickly and ostensibly take over streamside properties as well as upland properties. It can be dry and wet. These are some photos. On the left is a local photo of a streamside in the Lucky Mute area that they've been working on knotweed a lot in the Lucky Mute watershed. And you can see it's quite indomitable looking species. One of the reasons that it's so invasive is that even small fragments of the cane and the root will establish or can establish a new plant. So if we mowed this large patch down, every piece of that cane, or if we tried to dig it up, every piece of the root has the potential in the right conditions to regrow. So during flood events, these often get broken up and spread further downstream. It has the ability to very quickly establish through disturbance. So one of the ways that we're trying to address invasive knotweed is to do surveys in the summer with our annual stream crew. And then we follow up where the stream crew has found these locations in town. We follow up with outreach to the landowner to share what's been found, and if we secure their permission, we can actually offer free contracted services through one of our partners to do treatments of these knotweeds. For knotweeds that are found further up, like in your front yard or elsewhere in the city beyond 50 feet from the stream side, we traditionally have had a partnership with the Marion Soil Water Conservation District, who's here today. So if there are knotweeds on properties not along stream sides, we can partner you with the Marion Soil Water District to try and get those surveyed and treated. You're always welcome to send me an email or a text with a photo of something you think is knotweed. And if I can't tell from what you send me, I'd love to just come out and see what you're looking at. So this is something you don't want on your property. It can cause property damage. The roots can displace retaining walls along creeks. It can actually punch up through pavement and parking lots. So it's a very vigorous and resilient plant. And again, it's not recommended by our OSU extension to do manual treatments. Another invasive that we're trying to keep an eye on is something called the emerald ash borer. This is a bug that has been migrating from the East Coast and over decades, and it targets it targets ash trees in general. And in Oregon, we have a lot of Oregon ash trees, which are a native tree, as well as a lot of ornamental trees that have been put in. So this invasive pest will actually kill those trees, and once an infestation comes in, they can spread fairly quickly. So in 2022 was the very first time this invasive pest was found in Oregon, and it was found in June last year in Forest Grove. So now that it's here, a number of cities across the Willamette Valley and in Oregon are trying to plan for the implications of that. So one of the things we're trying to do potentially this summer with our stream crew is to start getting some baseline data of where Oregon ash trees and other ash trees are growing along the stream sides. And that way we can follow up with our streamside landowners about ash trees that might be in their backyard, the potential for those to be affected by the emerald ash borer, and give some recommendations of native plantings they could do to kind of forecast ahead. What if I lose my ash grove in the backyard? What are some things I could plant now that could start getting a leg up on growth. So it's a very small bug. There's a photo of it with a penny. They make these very tiny 4 millimeter size D-shaped holes where they exit the tree. So it can be pretty hard to ID those holes, especially in ash, which has really deep ridges in its bark. So if you have any questions about ash trees or emerald ash borer, I'm always happy to come out for a site visit. I can help you identify if you have ash trees on your property and provide some technical resources on some plants you might want to try to plant in the event that we lose those ash trees in the future. And then upcoming, we have a backyard stream buffer program. So we've got free trees we can offer once a year, 4 plants per property. We can offer pending updated grant program. And I kind of view this backyard stream buffer program as the one in between, or leveraging both. So what we're trying to do is encourage as much native planting within the 50-foot stream buffer that we can do with each landowner. Some properties that we go to, there's only maybe 10 feet that is available for planting, and then maybe your back patio starts, or the house is right there. So we're trying to figure out a very flexible program to encourage and incentivize these native planting buffers along our backyard creeks. We're also trying to recognize those who have maybe already put in the effort to control their weeds and plant their natives, and to also recognize those who'd like to go through a process. So as part of this program, we're trying to develop a series of landowner education and outreach opportunities. So things like native plant and invasive weed workshops, planting plan workshops, and different educational materials that we can post online, like videos and flyers. And of course, the Urban Streamside Program Coordinator position is available for site visits for the backyard stream buffers and anyone that has a stream side and would like someone to come out to talk to. So feel welcome to reach out anytime. You can grab my card in the back or grab me sometime today and we can connect. So again, with more than 90 miles of urban streams to care for in the city, we can't really do everything that we'd like to do with just our permanent staff at Public Works. So that's where our seasonal summer stream crew internship program comes into play. They help keep our waterways clean and healthy for our community members and the wildlife that call Salem home. And they serve as sort of the eyes and ears of our local streams. They're one of the few staff who gets to see that much creek frontage in that much time every year. So we'll share a little bit about this annual program and some of the accomplishments that our stream crew had from 2022 season. The stream crew started in 1998. And this was in response to the historic 100-year flood that happened in 1996 and washed through the city of Salem and across the greater Willamette Valley. This event caused evacuations of thousands of Oregonians and even cost about $500 million worth of damage. So in response to this, the Stream Crew program was created to identify and address flood hazards within the city of Salem's waterways, as well as to remove trash. This program ran for several years, primarily through operations and maintenance crews and also adults in custody crews. And then in 2003, we transitioned to what it is now and has been for the last 20 years, a summer internship, a paid internship for college students in the natural resources fields. So one of the benefits of having our student interns and their educational background and their career passions, we can task them with an expanded scope beyond just addressing flood hazards. We've expanded their scope to be identifying and documenting with GPS technology a variety of stream conditions, habitat conditions, and they also get to complete a stream habitat project when we have a partner collaborator in the summer. So again, the stream crew is basically our eyes and ears of what's happening in the streams for the city of Salem. Here's a map of the different creeks that the stream crew works on every year. Currently, the program inspects and cleans everything in red. So of the 90 miles of waterway, about 50% or 45 miles helps us to fulfill one of our obligations, helps us meet the requirements for stormwater pollution control and prevention under our Oregon Department of Environmental Quality stormwater permit. In addition to that, the city participates in FEMA's National Flood Insurance Community Rating System, which, among many other benefits, helps to reduce our flood insurance premiums. With that program, our requirements for participation are to inspect 100% of all flood potential waterways that might impact infrastructure and development. So that bumps our mileage up from 45 miles to about 60 miles. So we're covering, if there's 90 miles in town we're covering about 2/3 of that with our program in the summer. And not only does it have a direct benefit to the health of our community's waterways, but it also helps us meet these permit obligations and to participate in the FEMA National Flood Insurance Community Rating System. So we get some big bang for our buck. So for inspections, over the last decade, the stream crew has taken advantage of new technologies in GPS-based field data collection and data management on the computer. So now we can actually collect GPS data points with photographs tied to them, as well as a whole list of field attributes and notes that we take along with those GPS points. These observations can be used not only by our stream crew, but a wide variety of our public works staff for planning and responding to issues, as well as tracking changes over time. So these are just some examples of some of the primary things that we are looking for when we're out there. We're looking for different features of habitat, such as beaver dams and beaver activity. We're looking for a couple priority invasive weeds. We're documenting flood hazards, looking for code compliance issues, outfalls that have running water during the summer dry season, and bank erosion, just as examples. Those are some of the main things that we see. So while the crew is tasked with using their educational background and thinking about habitat and streams, we're also tasking them with collecting thousands of pounds of garbage that are carried into the waterways every year through littering and dumping and stormwater runoff and flooding. So the variety of things we find is it's wide and varying, and it depends on the creek that we're in and what part of town. But in general, we're finding plastics and metals, household items, food packaging, and a variety of things that you might see around town. These are just some examples of some larger materials that we had found. A lot of times they're not necessarily bunched up in one spot, but they're kind of strewn about as we walk, and we have to develop a good trash radar to find them and bag them and pull them out. So this is a very physically demanding job, a very physically demanding internship, and it also requires a keen sense of safety and awareness as we're navigating the terrain of our streams, and we're inspecting the materials as we find them to identify any potential safety hazards before we bag and haul out what we find. While they're inspecting for conditions, pulling out trash, we're also having them try to identify locations where we have debris that might be potential hazards for flooding or damage to structures. So the staff and our stormwater staff and our stream crew work really diligently to balance the importance of woody debris in the channel and sediments. For habitat and stream health, they're essential components. And we balance that with protecting public safety and preventing flood hazards. So it's a very case-by-case with every piece of wood or accumulation that we find. We're reviewing it with a very wide lens to think about both stream health and public safety. Some locations, like the ones shown here, where we're near culverts or bridges, they're not as suitable for leaving debris for habitat. These are areas that are more likely to see the flooding concerns and also to see a minor problem turn into something very large during a flood event. Here's an example that's not a bridge or culvert. This is just an area behind some residentials. Natural debris may not be located near a culvert, but they might sometimes be located in a known flood problem area, or they might have built themselves up in a way naturally that they sort of pose a greater concern for flooding than they might have if they organized themselves naturally in a different way. So we just have an example here of a fairly typical smaller debris accumulation that we see. We see a lot of things like this. And so the data will be reviewed that the stream crew collects of this jam. The staff will look at that data. We'll often conduct site visits to come look at this and look at the habitat upstream and down, look at our data and in-field observations of potentials for flood concerns. And so we'll try to balance the flood potential with stream health. And in this case, we found an area that had debris collecting in kind of a narrow catch point between two trees. It's a known flood problem area, and the way that the debris had built themselves up, it was fairly likely to continue to grow. So we removed this particular one after review and site visit. But not too far from that, we had a nice piece of wood come down that the crew identified. We reviewed this with staff in the field and looked at our flood maps. We decided in this case that we had the main trunk was below the effective velocities. When we get water rising, there's different velocities throughout the column of water. And in this case, we felt that the tree was low enough that during flood stage levels, it would be at a lower discharge and wouldn't be collecting a lot of debris. So we just limbed up some of the top part to make sure that didn't catch anything. And then hopefully this will accumulate some sediments and gravels and smaller coarse wood behind it over the years. We'll be monitoring this during and after storm season to see how it goes. And we might do additional modifications if there's any concerns that we observe each year. Oh, we have an opportunity. We're very fortunate today to have a couple of our summer stream crew members. I'll invite up now Zach. Zach was one of our stream crew members from 2022, and he's graciously offered to share a little bit of our highlights of data from last year. Thanks, Zach.
Beautifully said, Luke. As you can see, this is a summary review of highlights from the 2022 stream crew season, broken down by the main watersheds in Salem. And the next two slides will put these into historical context. This year, more than 20,000 pounds of trash were removed from the streams. As is typical in some years, Mill Creek and Shelton Ditch made up the most of the trash weight removed, totaling 12,500 pounds, and accounting for more than 62% of this season's trash. Claggett Creek made up the second most weight at 4,100 pounds and 20% of the total trash this year. The crew documented more than 300 locations with woody debris in the channel. Myself and other stormwater staff and stream crew members reviewed the data for all of these locations and conducted site visits of priority areas, locations to evaluate habitat potential and flood risks of these debris. After staff reviews, 75 cubic yards of green waste debris were identified as potential flood hazards to be removed. This equates to 25 full loads of our 5-yarder stream crew dump truck this season. Pringle Creek had the most flood hazard debris at 32 cubic yards, or 42% of our total flood hazard debris removed, with Glen, Gibson, and Little Pudding River behind at 12 and 18 cubic yards. For historical context of flood hazard debris removals, here you can see the chart, or see a chart of total cubic yards removed over the lifetime of the Stream Crew program back to 1998. The amount of debris removed each season can vary based on storm seasons and changes in the Stream Crew program. Here you can see an uptick in 2012, which likely reflects the major flood events that occurred the winter storm season leading up to that summer. And in 2021, you can see an increase likely due to the major ice storm that brought a lot of trees and branches down. And in this 2022 season, we dedicated a lot of additional staff and crew time to review the debris jam, data collected, and to visit priority sites in an effort to identify debris that would provide stream habitat benefits with minimal risk for flood hazards. Here's a historic graph of the trash removed since 1998. There are a lot of variables that can affect the trash totals in a season. In the early years, trash and debris were often commingled during disposal. So these higher numbers may likely reflect the weight of those debris disposed with the trash. And in the late 2000s, we made an effort to recycle as much materials as possible. However, later on, these recyclables were no longer accepted as the materials were too soiled by mud and biofilms from the stream to meet increasing standards for clean materials for recycling. Although we had an uptick in 2022, in general, there has been a downward trend over the course of the program of reduced trash levels, and we anticipate that this trend will continue in the years ahead as the community sees that our creeks are being cared for and getting cleaner over time. With that, we'll head back over to Luke.
Zach, thank you so much. So we just have a few slides of sharing some of the data that was collected of not everything that they do. That would be a couple hours probably, but just some of the highlights that are showing you how we use the data the Stream Crew collects for a variety of other things. So one of them is documentation of beaver activity. This could be actual beaver dams, beaver lodges if we can find them, and then beaver chew if we see vegetation on the side that's been chewed down. One of the added benefits of the Stream Crew's data collection is the ability to track these locations of beaver activity and to see how they change over time, as well as to see how specific locations of dams and beaver chew are changing over time. Beaver populations across Oregon and the Willamette Valley have rebounded over the decades, many decades since historic fur trapping had greatly reduced their numbers. So beaver are providing a number of important benefits to our streams for free for slowing down stormwater and creating diverse stream habitats. As these important wildlife species continue to resettle in our urban environment, the City of Salem is developing outreach materials and management strategy to help identify different ways of coexisting with beaver and different things that you can do in the creek as well. So we actually do have a public website now up here. You could Google City of Salem beaver, and this should be one of your first hits, or you can get my contact and I can send it to you directly. It has some great information about our beaver, ideas for how you can manage beaver on privately owned streams. And there will be more information added to that page as we go. Oh, and I'll just highlight, the beaver are, at least last year, were mostly documented in Pringle Creek, Clark Creek, parts of Croizen, Battle Creek area, but historically, in recent years even, we've had beaver activity in North Salem and Claggett Creek, and more beaver activity in West Salem than just what was found this year. So every year things can change in terms of the dams that we see and the locations of beaver activity. As the stream crew goes about their work, there's 2 invasive plants that are a top priority for us that we have them document. One is the knotweed varieties that we talked about a little bit earlier. And those are on the left, and they're shown in a red flag on the map. So knotweeds quickly displace native vegetation and can cause damage to infrastructure and property. They quickly take over blackberry even. So they're a very resilient weed. Our knotweed infestations have mostly been found in the Croizen Creek, Pringle, and Clark Creek watersheds. So we're doing outreach to those landowners every summer, encouraging them to participate in our free treatment program. Typically, our contractors are out doing the treatments in between August and early October. September is a good time to get out for treatment of these. And so we'll do our outreach over the summer. The other weed that we haven't talked about yet today is called a yellow flag iris. The yellow flag iris can grow both in the channel itself, especially in slower water parts of the channel, and then it can also grow on the wet sides of the area adjacent to the channel. One of the things about yellow flag iris that we key into for our program is that it has the potential, especially in the channel, to cause blockages of flow in the stream. So it can become a conveyance hazard, as well as displacing our native vegetation. We do not currently have a treatment program for yellow flag iris, but the populations are being tracked by the stream crew, and the infestations are widespread, but they're mostly being found in the Mill Creek and Pringle Creek areas. And a couple ways to identify the yellow flag besides the yellow flower is if you did dig it up, it typically has a pink root, very bright pink root, or beet colored. And then the seed pods look like a little gherkin, like a little pickle, and they float. Yellow flag spreads vegetatively too, so manual treatment is not necessarily recommended by OSU Extension either. Each fragment of root can create a new plant, and I've also learned that the above ground vegetation, the leaves, in the right conditions can reproduce too if you mow it, and especially if it has a wet spot that it can take hold in. Another great benefit of the stream crew is identifying potential pollution sources or other issues involving our stormwater system. So while they're out there during the summer and it's likely not raining, they're looking for culverts that have flowing water, discharging water into the creek. So this map shows you all the places that we found flowing water coming out of a culvert during a dry portion of the summer when it hadn't rained. Sometimes these outfalls are just flowing natural groundwater and springs and seeps. Other times it can actually be an indicator of leaking drinking water mains, potentially a sanitary sewer cross connection from a residential home, or illicit dumping of water. One example might be emptying a summer pool into the creek. So when we find a flowing outfall, the crew tests at the very least for chlorine levels, and that helps us to a certain degree to identify potential drinking water leaks, because that chlorine comes from our processing of creating drinkable water. We also inspect the water for unusual odors, colors, or floatables. So if we see anything that's unusual, or if our chlorine test shows up positive, we call dispatch. And dispatch will alert the appropriate staff. We have an environmental services team who can try to track upstream, following the stormwater system, where that may have come from. And then the last highlight is code compliance. So our stream crew is trained by compliance on identifying different potential compliance concerns. Some of the common compliance issues that we see are shown here. So one of those would be what appears to be a pump in the water pulling water out of the creek. We also have ordinances related to both the removal of vegetation and the dumping of vegetation. So if we identify places where it looks like native vegetation or large trees have been cut, we can document that and share that with compliance. Or if we see dumping of residential landscaping debris, it could be lawn clippings, giant piles of leaves, large piles of prunings, sometimes, as a picture shown here, a whole tree. So we'll document those and share that with compliance. Vegetation removal, obviously, we're trying to improve how much vegetation we have along the creek, so it's important to protect what's there and not remove it. Although we do have a tree permit, a removal permit that you can contact the planning office. And if you have any questions about tree removals or vegetation removal, you can contact me and I can get you in touch with planning. And for dumping, it can add excess nutrients to the water system. It can cause flooding hazards and things of that nature. So we have ordinances that prohibit the dumping of both trash and landscape green waste and debris. And then lastly, one of the more common compliance issues that we run across is a fence or other structures built in the creek or along the floodway. The fences and structures are prohibited within the stream unless city provides pre-approvals for those. These structures pose a significant flood hazard potential as they can catch debris during flood stages. So as you can see here, the crew documented a newly identified fence in 2022. It wasn't there prior summer. And this was actually located in a known flood problem area. So our crews removed multiple yards from this fence of green waste debris, and then we followed up with compliance to outreach with the landowner. So you can see quite a difference of how much debris came out of that, just that one fence. So for anyone who is in college now or maybe has a family member in college, we would love for you to join the stream crew. This infographic shows a variety of our former stream crew staff, and it shows their different positions that they have now. So you can see that folks have gone on to careers at the city of Salem and the city of Kaiser, and other municipalities, county government, state government. And they've also transitioned to private industry, doing private consultations, and the connections that you make, some of the skills that you develop over the summer can really take you on a wide and varied and fruitful path as you go forward. So we are actually currently in the process of getting our HR packets ready for Stream Crew 2023 season. We're hoping in April to have those posted. Oh, I got my slides out of order maybe. Yeah. We'll be posting those in April, and they'll be available at this website, or you can contact me if you'd like to be notified directly when that gets posted. The minimum qualifications for the stream crew, the season runs late June through early July through August, September. Some of our Willamette University students and other students might leave earlier in the season because their school starts back up if they haven't graduated already. We ask you to be able to pass a background check. We'd like you to have an Oregon driver's license and a driving record that meets our standards. You need to be currently enrolled in natural resources or related degree, and have, if you've graduated, you would need to have graduated within the last 6 months. And natural resources career can be very widely interpreted. It could be biologies, horticulture, environmental science, geography. There's kind of a wide breadth of what that might mean for a relevant major. And then we'd also like you to have 6 months related paid or unpaid or volunteer experience. And there's so many different job duties that we have. It should be pretty flexible for a lot of students to find some relevant work experience. If you like to stand out in your application, these are some of the things that we look for. Number one is safety. We like someone who can work in outdoor terrains and outdoor environments, keep themselves safe, keep their teammates safe. A can-do attitude is really helpful. We do a lot of things out in the creeks that are physically tough and mentally tough, and keeping that positive attitude really makes the summer go well. We work in small teams, so we're looking for folks who can work in a team environment and do problem solving with others. And of course, the City of Salem's slogan now is "at your service." So we're really looking for folks who have that community service, customer-oriented approach to their work as we're working in folks' backyards. GIS software experience is really helpful. That's our GPS technology that we use, related coursework. We drive a lot of work vehicles and trailers, so if you have experience with that, that's really helpful. And we use a lot of hand tools and different types of power tools too. So if you have experience with that, it can help set you apart. Before we go to our partners, I did want to acknowledge, if you guys wanted to come up, we have a couple of our stream crew members. Zach spoke earlier. We have Elena as well. So these are 3 of our 9 stream crew members from last year, so we got a third out here today. Would you guys maybe want to introduce yourselves, your name, where you live, what school you go to, and then maybe one thing that you wanted to share about your stream crew experience? Okay.
As said before, my name is Zach Pugh. I'm an ecological engineer at Oregon State University, and I am from Salem, Oregon. And I guess I forget what you said about the stream crew, but it was really fun. It was a great experience being outside. It really helped really set my mind that ecological engineering is what I want to do. And I would definitely recommend it if anyone is interested.
Hi, my name is Nick, and I am a second-year student up in Washington from Green River College. I also live up in Washington, but I'm in the process of moving down to Oregon, the Turner area. And my most memorable experience in the stream crew was literally the first thing I pulled out of a creek was a handsaw. I was totally surprised by that. And there's all sorts of fun little things that we found out there. I really enjoyed working with everyone in that crew. There's really good people that work out there, and also the landowners that we encountered, the neighbors, they're really nice people. I really like the community out there. I really recommend this internship.
Hello, my name is Elena, and I'm in my last year at Willamette University as an environmental science major. And yeah, one of the things that was really great for me with this internship was just like giving me the ability to feel empowered to do field work, because, you know, working with like larger vehicles like the dump trucks that we drove, or working with hand tools or power tools, this was a really great way to get familiar with working with those tools in a really like safe and supportive environment. And that's helped me build a lot of confidence. So now when I look at job descriptions that might mention, you know, working with chainsaws as part of the job requirements, that doesn't scare me off anymore. So that was a really great part of this internship for me. And yes, as everyone else has said, I highly recommend it to anybody who's interested.
Right on. Thank you guys for sharing about your experiences. And don't forget, if you want to apply for this summer, the application's coming up soon. You can always come back, and we'd love to have your expertise. Hey, I'm actually on time. Okay. So we're going to transition to about a half hour of local partner resources who are working with us on our mission to improve the health of our Salem streamside. So whenever we're ready, we'll start maybe with Marion Soil Water Conservation District. And I can assist with pulling up a Google Chrome. Yeah. Excellent. And joining us on the stage is Cassie Roost. Cassie joins the Marion Soil Water Conservation District earlier this year as their new urban conservation planner. So Cassie is a wonderful resource both for myself and for urban residents and urban landowners across Marion County for a wide variety of project types. So Cassie, thank you for coming.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. Nice to meet you all. As Luke just mentioned, my name is Cassie, and I am the new Urban Areas Conservation Planner for Marion Soil and Water District, which is a local government organization that helps improve, conserve, and protect the quality of soil and water resources. I was going to make a PowerPoint here, but I thought it'd be better just to show you all the things that we could offer you directly on our website. That way you know how to access the information later if anything speaks to you. So if you look over here, let's see. So for what we offer, we do have our yearly native plant sale. So if you're trying to source plants for a project, we actually support different wholesale nurseries, and we can make the plants available at a much more affordable price for you. So we usually take orders in January or so, and then we have our sale available in March. So we could potentially be your one-stop shop to source plants. What we offer too, we can also help you by providing consultation, developing plans, or providing you technical assistance that you might need for your land. So we have a great team of planners focusing on urban areas, natural areas, agricultural areas, so we can help you get with the right person to provide you the resources that you might need. We also do grant and funding opportunities, which is great. As landowners, or maybe even your place of work, would be eligible if you live in Marion County. Oh, can you guys still hear me? There we go. With our grants, Marion Soil and Water is able to support up to 50% of your project as a reimbursement. Which is great, up to $7,500 with $22,500 being the max for every 5-year consecutive fiscal period. And yeah, it's a great way to address different natural resource concerns you might be dealing with on your property. So if you have erosion or an invasive weed outbreak, or maybe you're trying to promote more wildlife habitat, pollinator habitat, this could potentially be a great grant opportunity that you might want to consider. And something cool about this grant opportunity is if you your 50% match can be counted as in-kind labor. So if you were willing to do the work for your project, that is able to count towards your match. So great opportunity there. Go back. So something else that we offer, we do a lot of education. So we have program bins that are available to check out that goes over all sorts of great topics if you are an educator. We have our yearly Salmon Watch field trips, which are pretty cool. They're available for school districts within Marion County for students to get the chance to learn more about salmon biology and watershed ecology. And it's just a great opportunity for students to actually get to see salmon in person. We hold the opportunity up at Pack Saddle Park, so usually the salmon are spawning when we're there, which is pretty cool. And the students all get to rotate through these 4 stations. And if any of these are also of interest to you, you can actually volunteer to lead one of these stations. We do offer both training and curriculum in advance, so even if you're not a professional fish person, you know, we'll make sure that you're prepared and ready, and it's a great way to learn. Going back here, more on what we offer. Going into the education, we do have our first Friday webinars that happen, and we do have one coming up on May 5th, all on the emerald ash borer. So that might be of interest to you if you have ash trees on your property. And we also do our in-person workshops through our conservation club and our radio show with KMUZ. So we have all of those posted from past ones, if that's of interest. And the last couple of things I wanted to highlight here is our conservation directory. So if you are trying to do a project on your property or maybe your place of work, and you're trying to find, you know, maybe a nursery or a contractor who could do the work, or maybe a soil testing lab, we have all of that listed out here to where you can find the service you might need. We are still working on building out this page, so if you know anyone that you feel like should be on this page, or maybe you have a business, feel free to contact me afterwards, and we can make sure that we get you up here. It's a great free opportunity to advertise and get you connected to the right people. The last thing I wanted to share here is our plant database. So if you are interested in learning more about native plants, invasive plants, this could potentially be a great resource for you. So let's say you want to find native plants and you have a riparian area and you're only interested in shrubs. This could be a great way to make sure you're picking the right plant for the right place to help you develop your project plan. So yeah, I think that's all I have, but I do have a booth set up outside, so if you have any questions, feel free to find me after. Got all sorts of great resources and really cool stickers if anyone wants to find me. Cool, thank you.
All right, we'll invite Mark Bell with the Polksowar Conservation District, which will help our West Salem side of the city limits. And I'll just say, we're so happy to have Cassie on board at the district. A lot of times I'll bug her to come out for site visits with me, and she has resources that complement our city resources. So it's really nice to try and get both of us out there if you can. So with that, we have Mark Bell with the Polksowar Conservation District.
Right.
Get that up.
Thank you, Luke.
Yeah. Here we go. Get on the big screen.
Oh, right.
Let me get you a presenter view.
Yeah, that'll work just fine. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for having us all here, and thanks for coming out on the rainy day, especially. So yes, I work for the Polksowar Water Conservation District. We are just the other side of the river there. Each of the SWCDs are funded independently. That helps them tailor what they what their particular area needs. Almost all of the SWCDs are shaped around counties. We are all sort of provide different things, but we all cooperate and do our best to complement each other as much as possible. On the Polk County side of it, many of our, funding programs are targeted more towards the agriculture and forestry communities, particularly residents outside of the urban growth boundary, but we're certainly not limited to that. And there's numerous other ways that we can get involved with, say, the Polk SWCD and our Watershed Council partnerships as well too. Say Morgan over in the corner over there is our outreach coordinator as well too. You may have talked to her there, say up the table there as well too. Say she can tell you a ton more about a lot of the other programmings, like say like our native plant sales, both say both woody and bulb species that we have at separate times. We are at the Polk County Fair. We have a number of other types of habitat walks and say other events that say that Morgan's been doing a really fantastic job, really say gearing up to get quite a bit more going. For myself, say what I'd like to do is really say just jump right into the deep end here for a second. And I swear this is the most complicated thing you are going to see, and it gets a lot easier from here. But since, so what I really wanted to do was talk about and highlight how the principles of, say, of streamside restoration are universal both for urban areas and forestry and agriculture. The ways that you can assess, the ways that you can work, so you can find out what you can do to improve these areas are very much the same. So the reason why I wanted to show you this particular graph here, or sorry, set of graphs, is they are showing you, say from, say top left there, say, and then going around are showing, say amounts of, say sediment, pesticides, nitrogen levels, and phosphorus levels that are prevented from entering, say, a flowing waterway by having, say, any sort of vegetated buffer on the way from the water from wherever it is going to getting, say, to actually getting into the creek. There is highlighted lines there on the x-axis there, right at about, say, at about 10 meters, which is about 35 feet in American. And those there are highlighting to showing that at that level, at about 35 feet, we can stop about 90% of whatever runoff. Once again, sediments, pesticides, nitrogen, phosphorus, any other things that we're not necessarily, say, testing for, that's going to get, say, that's going to be stopped from entering the flowing water from in that way. Now, agricultural producers, forestry operators, they have the ability to, say, to control what's going on in that 35-foot range or more very easily, usually. But urban land managers really are very limited, say, with that. And that's not to say, and I don't show that to you to say to be discouraging or say or anything. What's important is in those sections from 0 to 5 meters, anything there, say, and beyond, shows you how important each of those extra little inches can be to grabbing even more of that, say, of what is, say, preventing more runoff from getting into the creek. Anything that you can do to devote a little extra native vegetation along your creek or in areas where you can to, say, just to increase that, even if it's just a foot or two, can have a significant impact. And then particularly one thing for, say, for urban land managers is impermeable surfaces, concrete, asphalt, anything that is going to have rainwater hit the ground and roll sideways, go into a different direction besides percolating directly into the soil. Whatever sediment, whatever distance it travels from a permeable surface, from concrete, rooftop, whatever, anything like that, before it gets to some amount of grass, soil, something directly into a creek sometimes, it's going to pick up all of those things, say, additional contaminants, additional, say, sediment, additional chemical, say, and nutrients and stuff like that, and bring those into the, bring those into the creek. Say, it will transport anything along those, say, along asphalt, things like that. So, if you can, yes, say look at more, say, sort of open pavers for your patio decks and things like that, if possible. All of those will go, will have a major improvement. Say that will, say that can go a long way for you. Now, One of the other things that I really thought was, say, very much universal that I'd like to be able to give you guys is make you aware of this, this methodology that I use. Other land managers have used it. Luke's been very familiar with it from his time at the watershed councils beforehand, and used it a number of times, I'm sure, across all of these types of riparian work. This is a tool that is developed by the Natural Resource Conservation Service, the NRCS, and it is it's called the Stream Visual Assessment Protocol. And this is the second version of it. There is a giant link to a PDF there. We'll send that you can see the entire thing and go through it if you like. But the word visuals in there. One of the best parts about this is that the only equipment that you need is your eyes and the ability to look around the area that you want to assess. And this is a national guide, whether you're talking about, heavily rocky mountainous areas in Colorado, whether you're talking about, the Atlantic coast, if you're talking about East Side Oregon, if you're talking about West Side Oregon, California, anywhere, all of these places, this will be applicable. Coastal marches, and including urban areas as well as agriculture, forest, wildlife areas as well too. This is at the end of it, this is what the score sheet that you end up using. You can evaluate, it helps instruct folks to evaluate on up to 16 different elements, but you don't necessarily have to score all of them, especially if you're trying this in the summer and you have a seasonal creek that is dried up. You are not going to be able to give it a score for pools or water appearance and things like that. You don't want to give them zeros necessarily, because seasonal creeks are very healthy on their own as well too, and they can be. We're scoring these from 0 to 10, and then they're all added up and averaged, and that can give you a very that can give you something that you can compare. It's not about necessarily scoring just to give yourself a grade. You want to be able to use these individual categories to find out what's either dragging your score up or down in particular areas. It'll help you identify what things you can, what activities you can do to improve some of those, those characteristics too. I do want to show you, this is one of the elements in there. This is element number 5. It is the riparian area quality. This is generally referring to the habitat sort of quality of it. It's the guidebook is very, very approachable for everyone. Shows you, what you should be looking for on scores between 10 to 0. It gives good examples of exactly what type of things you're looking for, but nothing specific to any particular area. It's just talking about native vegetation, not necessarily about which species are native for your area. That's how it keeps it being much more universal. But it makes you ask a bunch of questions that that'll be really fantastic to help identify what's going on in your area. Do you have native species there at all? What number of invasives are there? What's the ratio to them? If they're native or non-native, is it just one tree species or one grass species? Is there a diversity there? Let's talk about what's going on in the grass layer, the shrubs, trees as well too. Are there bare soil patches? All of these things are considerations that are going to help you figure out these scores and help you sort of really just get to know your area well, and it can something that you can train yourself on to use and just as you're going about your day. You can practice this at any of the number of places around that have creeks and streams throughout that you can get to in public urban spaces as well too. Let's see. There is. Damn it! There was one more note I had there. Now. Let's see. Oh, yes. And of course, in this case, right bank, left bank, sometimes you're going to have control of both areas. Sometimes you're not going to have control of both areas. Sometimes the right bank and the left bank are going to be vastly different. So it is important to kind of, identify what might be important there. monocultures of trees or any other species is typically a indication that something is slightly out of whack, say within the community, even if it's a monoculture of just native species. Like folks have been mentioning before, emerald ash borer, say the beetle is coming, we know it's here, and if your riparian areas are nothing but Oregon ash trees, 5-6 years ago, that wouldn't have been too much of a concern. But but now, it is something that we definitely need to watch for. If all the ash trees are vulnerable to it, and all of them die off, and that's the only shade that creek is getting, we've gone from heavy shade to no shade all of a sudden, that diversity of additional tree species, say grasses, shrubs, all of that, very helpful. And kind of this is just a great way to be able to distill this down into into something that you can compare site to site with a particular number. Looking at these as an example, on the left of the screen, on that side there. It is this was a winter photo, but most of what you're looking at on the grass layer there is reed canary grass, a very invasive, hard to get rid of grass. There's an ash tree or two. There's also a couple of hawthorns that are visible in that. It's fairly open, very little in the canopy cover. Most also important, all of the trees that you're seeing there are more or less in the same age class, which means that there's not necessarily recruitment of new trees coming in, and there's no very old mature trees there, that have survived. There is some bare patches of soil right in the foreground as well too. By my estimation, I could really kind of call this one I went on that category, I'd kind of give this one maybe barely a 5, maybe a 4.5 or so. On the other side, comparatively, we're looking at, we're looking at heavy cover, a lot of native maple, conifers, ferns on the banks. There's definitely regeneration, multiple age classes of trees there, complex water flow. This one's easily ranking up a 9, if not higher for us. Now, again, contextual, conditions matter. Like I said, the one there on the left may be more like a 5 right now, but if I told you I was in Western Oregon, but if it was Kansas or somewhere in Idaho perhaps or something like that, I'd say that would actually be a pretty decent job for, that would be a much different score for that area. But for us right now, we can do better than that one. Just wanted to bring these right back up. The SVAP2 PDF there is the full, full manual of how you can, read through, and the full scoring systems and the structure of the data sheets and everything as well too. And then the other one there, if everything I've said has sounded interesting but way too complicated, the NRCS has a webinar that you can listen to on demand. It's about an hour, and it's presented by the state biologist of Georgia and with their NRCS office, and goes through in detail every single one of those categories, every single one of those examples, talks about what you might be seeing in some things here and there. And even though it's from Georgia, the speaker's coming from Georgia, all the examples are from, like I said, are national and very applicable out there. I'd really love to see more folks have, this skill set to be able to be thinking about this, to have these ideas and questions in their head when they are walking around their areas, whether it's theirs, whether it's in the public parks, whether it's just something you're just driving by on the road, because that's the best part about this, is that you only need just your eyes and your and the ability to look around the area. You can do that from afar, you can do that close up. You can help assess a lot of these things very quickly, and the more you practice it, the better you get at it, and the quicker that you can find, that you can make evaluations and figure out what where your real concerns are, and how you can target those particular categories where say where you're seeing underperforming, say elements. And just to round this one out, because everyone has to have it, here is our extra little bit about emerald ash borer as well too. Morgan has a slightly different handout that is on our table in the back, but this one was one that I wanted to show as a blowing up here. Because the emerald ash borer does have a lot of lookalikes, both native and non-native. Most of the ones that are non-native are significantly less destructive than the emerald ash borer as well. So, not every beetle-like thing crawling on your ash trees are going to be an emerald ash borer just yet. But it is going to be increasingly important for folks to be able to identify EAB and be able to identify it, confidently, rather than as quick as possible to do our best to save as many of our ash trees along our creeks and waterways as much as possible. I think that's just about all that I had here for this. I do believe so. Yes, we do have lots of additional talking that we could do about specific programs and things like that on individual sites across Polk County. For a variety of topics. Myself covering most of, lots of the riparian things, but not necessarily all of them. And yeah, also not limited to, to traditional ag, forestry, and other habitat concerns, well beyond just the creekside and riparian areas as well too. And so we really can do our best to help if you are in Polk County, and we can help find the right folks for you if you're not, and be able to get you to someone that can work with within your area if you are outside our service. Thanks very much for the time being able to get up here, Luke, and really hope that we've been giving you what you were hoping for here. Well, all right. Well, that's my time. Thank you guys very much. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love Mark's early slides showing the science of just getting a few trees along that stream side. Briefly, in our last partner for today, we have Ken Beerley with the Glen Gibson Watershed Council. So, Ken, if you want to join us up here, this is also for our West Salem Streamside residents. And Ken, I can get you set up. Yep. And we'll get it to show on both. Yep, you're all set. Please go.
Thank you. Since I'm between you and lunch, I only have about 48 slides to show you here, so we'll go through it quickly. The Glen Gibson Creek Watershed Council is a total voluntary group that was started about in the mid-90s. How do I make, oh, there we go. I want to talk a little bit about some of the projects because we cover the entire watershed. It's not simply the riparian areas, but it is places throughout the west side watersheds. And so we work with both uplands as well as the riparian area. So there's a number of projects that we've done throughout the last couple of decades. The Orchard Heights Oak Savanna is a small project we're working on continuously since the plantings of the oak trees and about 25 years ago. We had some of the neighbors plant oak trees. This is a cooperative effort with the city of Salem. This is a reservoir site that's reserved for future reservoir use, but we restored native cover, done educational projects on it. It burned last summer, and students from the Willamette University are looking at the effect of burning on both the oak trees as well as the understory. We've also cooperated with the city on developing a rain garden in Wallace Marine Park. This has now been severely degraded by temporary residents in the area, but it's the one that we've maintained over at least a decade and a half. We've also done private rain garden demonstration sites. We've worked with the Audubon Nature Reserve in West Salem, helping them reduce erosion. We've got funding for that. Had a horse team help bring in log debris to reduce the amount of trailing that led to erosion and sedimentation. Work on outreach with others. We have a regular newsletter that is published on our website. Our website is noted on papers outside, so I think that it's something that I think helps build understanding of watershed conditions, watershed issues. We have a partnership with the Salem Electric, who provides electric service, the Habitat Improvement Program, something that patrons of Salem Electric can volunteer to provide funds that then are made available for watershed restoration projects within their service area. Claggett Creek receives some of the funds. The Glen Gibson Creek Watershed Council receives some of the funds. And they're put to use in projects like this, which is in Eola Ridge Park, where we eliminated blackberries, restored native plantings with Friends of Trees in cooperation with the City of Salem again in the with their park system. This helped carry out their master plan for their park. We've also been working with the City of Salem Parks Department and in trying to implement pollinator gardens in some of the parks. We've implemented a number of those. So it's a way to provide resources that otherwise the city would not be able to provide entirely on their own. Struggled with natives, with invasive species like everybody else. Done invasive species limitations on a variety of places. And because we're an urban watershed council, we've done a lot of commenting and engagement with the City of Salem on the development of their policies. And most recently, also done advocacy and education with the school districts. And most recently, we're wrestling with trying to develop a floodplain species assessment with the City of Salem as a way to provide community credits for the National Flood Insurance Program and protected endangered species associated with floodplains in Salem area. So we're continuing. We've got lots of opportunities for further projects. We are, like I said, a citizen-led group. There's a small group of us that have been continuing. We are not supported by public funds. We are a volunteer effort that is interested in the health of the watersheds that drain into the Willamette River from the west side. And we will continue to be advocates for floodplain protection and other aspects of watershed health that maintain the quality of life for the folks in West Salem. And with that, I will let you go to lunch.
All right. Thank you so much, Ken, and for all the work the Glen Gibson is doing. Our Claggett Creek Watershed Council representatives aren't here today, but I can share that they are a voluntary-run watershed council as well. They work in the Claggett Creek area, which crosses city boundaries into Kaiser in North Salem and South Kaiser. They have done a number of volunteer events, plantings, creek cleanups, landowner outreach for improving streamside buffers. So if anybody is in Claggett Creek or would like to get involved in Claggett Creek, feel welcome to reach out to me, and I can connect you with the Claggett Creek Watershed Council. And one of our stormwater staff members currently sits on the advisory group for the Watershed Council. So we've got a connection there too. Just wrapping up our day. So folks are welcome, as staff are able to stay in the back room here in the hallway. We have outreach booths that you can engage with our district partners, our watershed councils, and the city of Salem. For those who would like to, at noon, I'll be over by Bush Park. You can see, oh, I can see. Can you see? Okay, you can see now. We're going to meet over here in the parking lot. I'll try and get there at noon. I think I can wrap up in time. And then the creek kind of runs over here, so we'll use this as a meeting ground. There's actually another parking lot kind of hidden in the trees back here. So we'll meet here in case there's people that don't know the back parking lot, and then we'll walk over here by the creek. And I got lots of pink flagging up, identifying little things I want to highlight. Totally optional. It's just for folks that would like to get some on-the-ground visuals of some of the things that we do, some of the things we see out there in the creeks. And let's see if that'll move too. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you so much again for everybody that came out today and shared your Saturday morning with us. Thank you to our folks in CCTV, sharing their expertise and technology to get this recorded and shared with the community. Thanks for our partners, districts, watershed councils, our prior summer stream crew interns. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I can help you connect also with partners that were here today or others that might not have been able to attend. So with that, thank you so much, and we'll see you guys later.